Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the South Carolina Disaster Corps podcast, the exclusive podcast that is dedicated to the education of South Carolinians in a variety of topics within emergency preparedness, and the only one that strives to apply that knowledge to increase community awareness, resilience, and service. I'm your host, Sawyer, and welcome to episode 3 of the podcast. Today we're joined by Lieutenant Todd Caron, who's going to be speaking with us about active assailants and active assailant training. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Sure. My name's Todd Caron. I'm a lieutenant with the Anderson County Sheriff's Office. I am assigned to the Special Operations Division, but I'm over the Civil Division and Community Outreach, which part of that goes towards, helping teach church safety and active assailant type training.
Perfect. So what are the basics that any average citizen should know about active assailants as individuals?
Basically just how to respond, what exactly they should do, God forbid they were to ever get caught in an active shooter type event. Basically, avoid if they can, and that's, it used to be run, hide, fight. Now, the folks that I'm trained through is alert, and we use civilian response to active shooter events. And they use, instead of run, hide, fight, they use avoid, deny, defend. And I like that a little better, because instead of run, they use avoid. Because run implies, well, if I just take off running, I'm good to go. And it's not. You're trying to avoid the shooter. If the shooting is to your right, run to your left. You go the opposite direction. You're avoiding wherever the shooter might be. And then there was deny, which is, instead of hide, they changed it to deny, because you're not just going to climb under your desk and going to be okay. You're trying to deny the suspect access to where you are. Keep him out so he can't get to you. And then they changed it from fight to defend, and I think a big part of that sweep was HR people. You go into a business and tell the people to fight. HR people tend to lose their minds. You can't tell people to fight, but you can tell people to defend themselves. So basically just, know the basics. Avoid if you can, deny if you can't, and fight because you have to. And then something else that I like to harp on is know how to treat trauma. If you were to, God forbid, have a gunshot wound, know how to keep yourself and other people alive after that.
Gotcha. And I actually hadn't heard the change. I had heard hunt, run, hide, fight.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, that change is almost more like changing the attitude people take when they're in that kind of situation.
Yes.
And I think probably mentality and attitude is an important part of the training that you do. Yes,
absolutely. Absolutely.
So what locations are usually the most vulnerable to active assailants?
I don't know that any place is necessarily more vulnerable, but I know the ones we tend to see the most are schools, and we do a lot of training with our school districts. But then, in addition to schools, businesses, it doesn't matter the size. Any business could be susceptible to it. Someone fires an employee and they're angry about that, and start making threats. Then, so.
Definitely. And kind of branching into that, there are probably trainings that are standard for just any sort of situation for active assailants, but what are the trainings that are standard? Are there like specific ones for like certain businesses and certain communities that are also available?
We don't necessarily tailor towards one business or another, but what we do offer is we will come in and give a free safety assessment to anybody that wants it, be it a school. We did every school in School District 5. Where a group of us walked through the school and we said, okay, you're doing this right. This could be improved upon. And we gave them a written up assessment of things that they could have improved upon and things they were doing good to keep themselves safe. Not just in active assailant type event, but overall safety type stuff. Now we do have some classes that are specifically tailored to church settings. That's another, area that we teach in. So I do have a program specifically set up for churches as well.
Okay. And we were talking a little bit before the podcast. So how has COVID affected your ability to train individuals and community outreach to certain communities as well?
Unfortunately, the COVID has pretty much shut us down there for a while. It's starting to kick back up now, but because teaching these types of classes, I've done as few as 5 people and as many as 600. Well, obviously, you're not getting 600 people in a room nowadays.
Definitely.
So it slowed us down for a while there, a couple of months, and then we are open to train anytime. We do use social distancing precautions.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to make sure that I stay at least 10 feet from everybody. The mask makes me muffled a little bit, so I try to go without a mask. So with that, I stay back. Now, we do some hands-on training
Mm-hmm.
where we get, I get up close and personal with some folks showing how to do a takedown of a suspect if they were to have to defend themselves. And I think that's where our program differs a little bit from just your average active assailant response program, is we go a step beyond of just telling you,
Mm-hmm.
defend yourself. We show you how to defend. But when we do that, of course, we put the mask on, and I make sure the other person has their mask on, and, because we're in close contact with each other at that point.
Gotcha. And for the individuals who might be a little bit more hesitant about going out and doing the on-hand training or in-person training, do you know of any online options or anything like that, or research that they could look at or maybe plug into to see if they can learn even a little bit while stuck at home, if they're too afraid to go to an actual class at the moment?
Yes. There's YouTube videos out there that you can watch. I know a lot of companies that they'll have us come in every other year, every 3 years, and teach a physical class.
Mm-hmm.
But then on those other 2 years, they'll just do a online refresher. The Run High Fight that we mentioned earlier,
Mm-hmm.
they have a pretty good short video that folks use for training and things like that.
Perfect. And I would like to take a little bit of time to ask a little bit about the trainings that you lead personally and what they entail, and where individuals can get your services as well.
Sure. So, a lot of folks come into this training because it's an active assailant type training, and they're pretty much scared.
Mm-hmm.
They think it's going to be doom and gloom because you're talking about and you're talking about an active shooter event, and you are. But we try to keep it as light as possible, but as serious as possible. We're serious when we need to be, but it is certainly not a doom and gloom class. There's no surprises. I know there has been some publicity and other training classes where you'll come in for an active assailant class, and in the middle of the class, somebody busts through the door with a blank gun shooting. We don't do that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe in scare tactics like that. You never know who you're dealing with. If you have somebody with PTSD, if somebody has a concealed weapons permit, things like that, it's just not something I believe doing that way. We do the hands-on.
Mm-hmm.
But everything we do with a warning first. Even I yell a little bit during the class talking about, a lot of people tell people don't discount telling someone to stop, especially in a school setting. If the shooter is a teenager or a student, a lot of times if a person of authority yells at them to stop, they'll stop. Now, it's not a total brain reset, but during that session, I do yell, but I let people know, hey, I'm fixing to yell because I don't want to scare folks. I don't want to cause trauma to people. And we fire a blank gun if the facility allows, but again, it's controlled. We let people know, hey, we're going to shoot this blank gun off. That's to let people hear what blank gun sounds like, because gunfire in a building sounds totally different than gunfire at the range. Inside, it's more of a muffled, if it's close to the door will rattle. It sounds way different. But then I also like people to hear that you can track that gunfire. You can tell, okay, it started on this end of the building. Wait, it's getting closer. Maybe I don't have time to deny, and I got to go straight to defend. Things of that nature.
Gotcha. And so there are individuals who I grew up having to do active assailant drills in school, but I did know like adults who thought that it was, like, why are we making our kids do this? Why are they thinking about it? And what would you kind of say to people like that to kind of convince them that it is as important as it is, as we know it is?
Yes. Well, and what I think should be differentiated is I wouldn't put kids through the training that I do. Mm-hmm. Now, I would certainly advocate lockdown drills in schools. I'm not dismissing that at all. I've had some schools call me and want to teach their students, and I'm not teaching anybody below the 8th grade. Basically, high school and up is who I'll teach because I think they can handle it. I think kids younger than that, you're going to terrify them. If I had, the class I'd talk about, because I talk about that if the shooter's coming in there and he's coming to kill you, you may have to take his life first. I mean, that's the reality of it. It's you or it's him, and it's got to be him. He made a decision when he woke up that morning that he was doing something stupid that likely he was going to die at the end of the day, and you didn't. And that may require you to take his life, if that's what needs to be done. Gotcha. Obviously, it's not the first choice, but I do think lockdown drills in schools are important. I wouldn't go so far as to even put someone running around a school with a gun pretending to be a shooter. There's just no reason to put the kids through that sort of trauma, in my opinion.
Definitely. So. And this is a little bit of a personal question, and feel free not to answer if you don't want to, but have you had any experience with active assailants and active shooters in your real-life career? So
we had the Townville incident.
Yes, sir.
Jacob Hall was killed, and I did respond to that. I wasn't one of the first people there, but I was probably 16 cars back. There was a line of us going down the interstate as quick as we could get there. But it was an eye-opening experience. I mean, it's to evacuate a school and figure out where to take people and how to get them back, reunification, reunify them with their parents. It was a big process, and it was certainly a learning experience. So
definitely. And how has that event shaped your trainings? As in, how would it? Because certainly you guys learned a lot from that event because it was a terrible event, and I'm sure that it probably affected how you thought about things in law enforcement as law enforcement officers with your training during those events, but also how can we better prepare these individuals?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's something. Anytime I teach a class, I think about Townville. Matter of fact, I don't go into too much detail about Townville because it wasn't that long ago, and it's still a sensitive subject for a lot of people.
Yes.
I taught a class right before school started back, and I was told that one of the teachers there was a substitute at Townville that day. And, it didn't change the way I taught, because what I bring up is nothing, I don't bring up anything that's going to bring back bad trauma. But something one of the things I do when I first start teaching a class is I show pictures of people that tried to fight back, or they did something to try to improve their chances, and they didn't necessarily make it. And I show their pictures, and I kind of tell their stories, and Jacob's one of those pictures. I basically, the whole reason I show it is to tell people that when they watch the class that I teach, that I'm not going to show a picture of a shooter, and I don't even say the name of a single active shooter, because they don't deserve to have their names repeated. But the people that were killed, the people that I show, including Jacob, those are the people that need to be remembered.
Definitely. I was about to say, it seems like in many cases the shooter is the one who always gets the recognition when it should be the victims.
Right.
So if anyone's interested in finding your trainings or signing up for your trainings when they do officially come back online, where can they find you?
They can send me an email at tcaron@andersonsheriff.com. It's tcaron@andersonsheriff.com.
Perfect. Again, thank you for coming on to the show.
Problem.
It means a lot to us here at South Carolina Disaster Corps to have individuals be invested in coming onto our podcast. And again, you gave us a lot of really good information today about active assailants and active assailant training. And hopefully you have some individuals who will listen to this and get inspired and decide, hey, we probably should really take this seriously and come get training when those open back up. For any listeners who have questions for South Carolina Disaster Corps, you can let us know on Instagram, Twitter, or Facebook at SC Disaster Corps. For anyone who's listening on YouTube, you can leave us a comment. And anyone who's on our podcast hosting sites, we have an email that you can email us at, which is scdisastercorps@gmail.com. Any new listeners, or if you recommend to listen, they can find our episodes on Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcast, Breaker, Radio Public, Pocket Cast, and the SC Disaster Corps YouTube channel. For those of you who are listening on our podcast hosting sites, hit the follow button to stay up to date with the podcast. For any of you listening on YouTube, you can hit the like button, subscribe for more content, and hit the bell icon to receive notifications for new videos. If you want to learn more about SC Disaster Corps, AmeriCorps, or United Way, please visit unitedwayanderson.org. Thanks to all of you listeners for your support and for being with us today. And we hope to see you on Friday for our weekly shout out. And of course, remember to stay prepared.